What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Evan and I make videos about hot stocks, dividends, and options. So if that interests you guys, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss when I upload. Now in this video, we're going to go over what you guys need to know about the Switchback Energy and Chargepoint merger, and what you guys need to know going forward about Chargepoint, and some key points about their business. Now, before we actually jump into it, if you guys wouldn't mind going down and hitting the like button, it really does help out the channel, and it lets me know that you guys enjoy these weekday updates for these different stocks. So again, if you guys wouldn't mind going down and hitting the like button, I would really appreciate it. But with that out of the way, to kind of give you some context of where Switchback is trading right now, they're right around that $40 area, and as of today, they're down about 6% in the red. Now, this really isn't that bad of a pullback for Switchback because they've been going up pretty much since they IPO'd back in September, and on the 1 week chart, they're up almost 26%. So this small 5 to 6% pullback that they're having today really isn't going to affect them too badly. But for those of you who don't actually know, Switchback Energy is actually a blank check company, and they're just here to raise money for the merger that's going to happen between Switchback and Chargepoint. So there hasn't been a confirmation date as of yet. But the plan is that the two are going to merge sometime before the end of December, and then they'll be trading on the New York Stock Exchange under the stock name of Chargepoint Holdings. And that's the time to really look out for, because once they do merge, that's when we're going to see what really happens with their share price. And realistically, I think their share price will shoot up quite a substantial amount after this merger is complete. And I think right now, this could be the last chance to actually get into Switchback before they do rise up quite a substantial amount. Because as everybody probably knows, everything is going electric and everybody wants to go green, and we're seeing all these electric vehicle companies pop up left and right. And what gives Chargepoint an advantage over these other EV companies is that they aren't actually producing vehicles, they're producing the charging stations that the electric vehicles need. So Chargepoint can pretty much scale exponentially as long as there's electric vehicles on the road, and that's not going to be a problem because electric vehicles are the vehicles of the future, and they're likely going to be the majority of vehicles on the road within the next 10 to 20 years. And the actual growth that we see in Chargepoint after this merger, and even before the merger actually happens, is a reflection of the overall EV market. So obviously, as we see the EV market increase, Chargepoint is going to increase as well. And it's not like this is a company that's just starting out. They've already been around for over a decade, and they already have these charging stations in every major city in the US. And they have them scattered all across the country. And Chargepoint's forecasted revenue is actually predicted to skyrocket from $135 million in 2020 up to $2 billion by 2026. So obviously this is just a forecast and we can't say for sure until that time comes, but this is taking into account how much electric vehicles are predicted to grow by the year 2025 and 2026. But in terms of this $2 billion revenue mark by the year 2026, over that 6-year period, revenue is forecasted to spike 15.3 times their current revenue. And that works out to a compounded 57.6% annual growth rate. Now, for those of you who kind of got lost, that means that they're growing at almost 60% year over year, which is compounded yearly. And with their predicted revenue increase of 15.3 times their current revenue, once this merger actually happens and it becomes Chargepoint Holdings, there's going to be about 304.9 million shares outstanding after the merger closes. And at their current price, right around $40, this is over $12 billion for a combined company market cap. And if we actually discount this to the present at a 15% discount rate, that works out to about 43.2%, or just under $4 billion. And after you take away the $684 million in cash, the enterprise value is right around $3 billion. And using the same discount rate, the 2026 revenue actually works out to $895 million in today's money. And so because of that, the enterprise value to sales ratio is only 3.69 times. And this is by dividing $3.3 billion by $894 million in sales. Now you could argue that this is still a pretty ridiculous ratio, but when we compare this to other EV to sales ratios, they're all in the high 20s and low 30s right now. And you also have to take into account the future of where Chargepoint is going to go in the future. They're not a company that's producing vehicles, they're producing the charging stations. Now I suppose it's possible that they could get into vehicle production, but I don't think that's really in their plans as of right now. Right now, they're just producing charging stations. And as EV vehicles increase and we see more production of vehicles year after year, there obviously has to be more charging stations for these vehicles. And that's where Chargepoint comes in. And another thing that really does help out Chargepoint is that they're not competing with these other EV companies. They're more assisting these companies. These other companies like NIO or XPeng are competing with Tesla over in China, where Chargepoint, they're kind of aiding Tesla and they're helping Tesla because as more Tesla vehicles come out, Chargepoint gets more money because there's more EV vehicles in demand. So it's a very mutual thing between Chargepoint and these other EV companies. And Chargepoint has actually been around for quite a while. They were founded in 2007, and they've built one of the world's leading electric vehicle charging networks. Now, if you guys want to see really how many Chargepoint stations there are across the country, you can just go on Google Maps or you can look up Chargepoint stations across the country, and you'll be able to see how many there really are. There are Chargepoint stations in almost every major city in the United States, and they're only going to be increasing in the future. You'll probably see them in very small towns if you don't already. And you combine that with the increase in electric vehicle sales that are going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years, and Chargepoint is going to be looking like a pretty high valued company. And not only are consumers upgrading to electric vehicles, but there's also a growing trend where different companies are increasing their fleet vehicles and they're replacing them with electric vehicles. Now, obviously, it hasn't changed super drastically yet, but in the next 5 years or so, we're going to see a lot more of these fleet vehicles being electric vehicles. If you also combine the fact that semi-trucking, I believe it has to be emission-free by 2025, which means that these semi-trucks also have to be electric vehicles and they're going to need somewhere to charge up. I'm sure Chargepoint is going to get on that and they're going to make semi-truck chargers that can charge these semi-trucks a lot quicker than they would be able to right now. Because that's the big issue with electric vehicles is the charging time. And so Chargepoint obviously is working on this, and they do have fast charging right now. And for the most part, they can charge most electric vehicles on the market with an adapter if they can't plug directly into the vehicle. But the biggest issue is charge time right now, where Chargepoint is obviously working on that, and they are decreasing charge time. But that's another thing to look forward to in the future is that charge times are going to decrease drastically, and electric vehicle batteries are going to be way more efficient. They're going to be able to charge much quicker, and they're also going to hold a lot more charge in the future, allowing them to travel a greater distance on a single charge. But to give you a better understanding of how big the electric vehicle market is going to be in the future, it's estimated that 9.9% of new vehicles sold in 2025 are going to be EVs, and 29.2% in 2030 in the US and in Europe. And this is compared to 2.6% in 2019. So it's almost going to 5x in the next 5 years or so, and then about 10 to 12x in the next 10 years. So with that huge increase in electric vehicles on the road, obviously there's going to be a big need for charging stations all over the place. And there is a big issue right now of people who live in apartment buildings and they don't have a charge station at their apartment building, so maybe they can't buy an electric vehicle. But if Chargepoint can increase how many stations they have everywhere, that's going to cause a lot more people to buy electric vehicles that maybe wouldn't have considered them previously. So it's all basically a big cycle. As electric vehicle sales increase, charging sales increase, and so Chargepoint is really going to skyrocket in price in the future. And so it's this continuous loop of electric vehicle sales, and then Chargepoint puts out new charging stations, and then that cycle just continues and continues, and it just becomes this very mutual thing that helps both Chargepoint and whatever electric vehicles are out on the market at the time. Now I'm going to throw up a chart here that kind of shows you how much Chargepoint is going to increase in the future and what they're kind of estimating their sales are going to be. And if you look on the left, it shows passenger EV sales, and then on the bottom it shows what Chargepoint is predicting that their sales are going to be on each year. And you can see that it's directly proportional to the amount of EV sales that are going to be happening by 2026. And another thing that you should maybe be aware of is that Chargepoint doesn't only produce charge stations for the public. For example, at grocery stores or at parking lots, they also produce fleet products and residential products as well. So for example, one of their residential products is the Chargepoint home charger, and it's actually sold with a lifetime subscription and utility plans for managing home use. Now, I'm not sure exactly what this lifetime subscription includes, whether that means that you get free charging at any Chargepoint station out in public, or exactly how that works, but that would be interesting to find out. And they also have a multifamily charging solution where the monthly fee is billed to the tenant. And so obviously this is for like a multifamily home, like a duplex or a triplex or something along those lines. And possibly they'd put a few of these at different places like apartment buildings. And Chargepoint is also already integrated into a lot of different technologies. For example, they're already in different automotive softwares. If you're looking for somewhere to charge your electric vehicle, you could just go into your Android Auto menu, and Chargepoint is probably in there somewhere as an option. And then of course you can download them on your phone, or you can look them up on Google or use your Amazon Alexa, and you can find the nearest Chargepoint station. So they're really making themselves very accessible to different consumers. And so it does give you a good idea of how much they're going to increase in the future, just looking at the fact that they're so readily available and they're already so extensive across the country. And going back to their revenue, Chargepoint actually gets a lot of their revenue from reoccurring payments. So obviously this would be when a consumer goes in and uses one of these charging stations to fill up their car. So that's right around half of their income coming from reoccurring payments. So they could almost stop producing these charging stations and stop putting out new stations, and they would still be earning about 50% of the revenue that they currently are. Now the other 51% is upfront costs, and this is their hardware revenue. So that's when they're going in and installing these different Chargepoint stations at different locations. And Chargepoint is also 7 times their closest competitor in terms of market share. And so this is obviously huge for Chargepoint. Now I think the next closest competitor sometime in the future is going to be the Tesla superchargers, because obviously Tesla is the biggest EV company out there. And so they do have Tesla superchargers that Tesla owners try to go to first if they can find one. But as of right now, Chargepoint is 7 times their closest competitor, and it really shows you how big they actually are across the country, and they're actually expanding into Europe as well. And so pretty soon they're going to be expanding across the entire globe. And then if they can reach into China as well, obviously we know that China is a very large market and there's a lot of EV sales in China. And so then we would see Chargepoint really shoot up in share price. Now I know I didn't really go super in depth with Chargepoint's revenue and their different numbers, but this video was more to give you a basic understanding of what Chargepoint is and where they can be in the future, and to get the ball rolling and maybe give you guys some inspiration to look into Chargepoint and maybe you do decide to invest in them. Now obviously I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not saying whether you should or you shouldn't. That's more up to you to decide. But long term, I think this is going to be a very good company, and I think Chargepoint is really going to be worth a lot more in the future because of the fact that electric vehicles are increasing year after year, and pretty soon they're going to be the only vehicles on the road, whether that's in 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. Pretty soon that's likely going to be the case. And then a company like Chargepoint is going to be one of those companies where you regretted not buying in earlier. But for those of you who made it this far into the video, are you guys currently investing in Chargepoint? So right now it would be Switchback Energy with the ticker SBE. And if you guys are and you're comfortable with sharing, let me know your average share price and the amount of shares you have down in the comments. Lastly, if you guys haven't signed up for Webull, make sure you guys sign up using the link in the description and you'll get 4 free stocks when you deposit $100. Also, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like because it really does help out the channel. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you back here in the next one. Bye.